instead of thinking about I need to do my workout routine every morning, because routine for me is repetitive, every day it's the same, it's something that I need to do, and I changed it for ritual. For me, a ritual is nourishing, it's beneficial, it gives me joy, it makes me grow.
This is the Home of Healthspan podcast, where we profile health and wellness role models, sharing their stories and the tools, practices, and routines they use to live a lively life. Waldemar, it is wonderful to connect with you today. I wish I was with you in Mexico City. I still have not been, but I hear amazing things. Before we get into what you have done there, are doing there, and everything you have done and are doing, how would you define yourself?
Thank you, Andrew. It's a pleasure. I guess I can define myself as I'm a lively seeker of the adventure of life.
Love that. Seeker of the adventure of life. And I mean, when you say adventure, you're truly adventurous, right? Like that, you are an adventurer. You've kind of helped define some of the space. So can you explore and expound a little bit on when you say adventure, what you mean by that?
You know, my life story has kind of evolved around adventure. Since I was a little kid, I was always dreaming about, being out there. I don't know if you remember a long time ago when you could publicize cigarette brands. There was this brand called Camel cigarettes, and their whole campaign was this handsome adventure guy, always in these really cool places, dressed in a safari kind of outfit. And, he was rafting on a log raft in the Amazon River, smoking a cigarette. And that was me. I didn't care about the cigarettes. I just, I wanted to be that guy. So, as life evolved, I was always involved in adventure. So what I mean by the adventure of life is, I think everybody should live their life as an adventure, be it, climbing mountains or finding your path in business or family. But I think part of the essence of adventure is looking for the unknown and just venturing towards something that maybe makes you uncomfortable and you don't know. And I think that's what life is about.
Yeah, I was going to ask for you, because you started with the mountain climbing, and there's one side of adventure of kind of the outdoors, the not man-made, but there's a commonality of it that I think where you took it next, which is the unknown. So what may be an adventure to you may be a known path to someone else, but it's your adventure because you haven't done it before. And so when you talk about crafting the adventure of building your family and family life, or building your business or your career, even if it's not your own business, how do you see adventure? Is it the adventure to you, the newness, the exploration, the learning, or is it taking some of those quote wild elements outside the man-made into it that is critical?
No, I totally believe in it's the first idea. I think that everybody should have their own adventure, be it whatever it is. If you're a musician, I'm sure I don't have anything to do with music, but I'm sure that, maybe going to study in Paris is your big adventure, right? Or, deciding to play a solo in the subway just to see what it feels is a big adventure, because it's just, you exploring how far you can take it. And I think that's part of the concept of life, of growing. I was really involved in adventure in the sense of the outside, of climbing, of paddling rivers, but it kind of opened the world for me in the sense that I wanted to push myself to areas that felt uncomfortable, but eventually I felt comfortable in them, right? And I guess if you apply that to any sense of life, it makes you expand.
So is it the finding comfort in discomfort? There's a space of the unknown and discomfort. And then it's you do it so much that it almost starts to feel like home. This space of unknown and discomfort, like wow, like this is fun. I can change the story from it's unknown and it's scary to oh my god, it's exciting. It's the unknown. Is that kind of what the path was?
Yeah, it was totally, totally. And the thing is, once something feels comfortable that didn't feel comfortable, I guess you want the next thing, right?
Yeah, yeah,
That's what happens. Is
yeah,
you know I, in putting it in my space, when in my adventure climber space, is you have a big goal, you climb a mountain, you choose your mountain, you climb your mountain, you're in the summit, and the next thing you're thinking is which is the next one, which is the taller one, or which is the harder one, for good and for bad. I think
yeah.
that it's good to always keep moving, but it's not that good to not celebrate your goals.
And that was going to be my question on this adventure. So you're a big proponent of you've lived your life pursuing adventure and encouraging others to make their life their own adventure. What is the benefit of doing that? And what is the cost of not doing it?
You push yourself to expand, to meet new people, to be placed in areas where you feel uncomfortable, and then get a sense of security once you're there, and once you start understanding that what you feared is mostly in your head. Eventually, with practice and with commitment and everything, it starts feeling comfortable. I've met many people from different areas of and paths of life, backgrounds that I would have never met without me going into my adventure. I have really true friends that I met while climbing, and that I keep in contact with them, although I see them very, seldomly. But we have something really deep in common, right? On the other hand, I guess it creates a sense of restlessness, which in a sense makes you feel that you are never satisfied, because you always want the next thing, and you always want to keep pushing it, and you always want to feel uncomfortable. And then I guess I've excelled in pushing myself and doing things. I guess I'm in a stage where I need to understand the value of rest, of not seeking to achieve a goal all the time.
I totally get the two sides there. I mean, there's the one philosopher had the quote of like, what would Hercules have been without all the challenges, right? We grow to the challenges that we face. Abraham Lincoln would not have been Abraham Lincoln without the Civil War and right everything he had to go through. FDR with World War II and the Great Depression, right? It's the bigger the challenge, the more space we have to step into it and fully realize the person we can become. And I guess the flip side, what you're saying is there can become a pathology to that as well, of always needing more and more and more. And this restlessness, this lack of equanimity. And it sounds like you're kind of at a stage where you're trying to figure out what is that right equilibrium of pursuit versus peace with where I am at a given moment, or rest. Is that fair to say?
Totally fair to say. And I guess it's, everybody has an age where things start clicking or sinking in. I'm 56. I've been pushing it always. And I guess I'm in this time in which I know my life can't be about pushing my physical sense all the time anymore. So, I need to understand what is the balance at this age. I think there's an age where it's good to push, and then I think it cycles in life. There's not always an answer. It depends on where you are at life and what makes sense for you regarding that time.
Yeah, I always describe it. It's not a balance. It's a dynamic, as in changing equilibrium, because it could be 80-20, it could be 70-30, and it's changing for you with time, which I think may lend itself well to discussing the book you wrote and kind of why you did find your wild flow and who it's targeted to, why you thought you needed to go put this out in the world and share these ideas with people.
Well, it was kind of my personal story. I mean, what happened was after, like I said, I have my entrepreneurial life in which I, developed my business and started out as an adventure travel guide, eventually set up my operation, studied architecture. So I managed to design a small rafting lodge where that was the base for the operations in Mexico, and then that evolved into a whole boutique kind of adventure or outdoor hotel company. As I was pursuing, keep trying to keep active guiding, I was always pushing myself physically, always pushing myself, and it got to a point where I got into this cycle of setting a hefty goal, training super hard for it, achieving the goal, or trying to achieve the goal, and then I was mentally exhausted and physically exhausted, and most of the time I had pulled a muscle or had some aches or whatever, and I said, I'm gonna lay off for a little while. And then the guilt started playing in my head about, you can't be lazy, right? You have to keep moving. So I set up a hefty goal and I started going into the cycle of super hard, exhausted, injured a little bit, and then super hard, exhausted, injured. Eventually, I was water skiing and had a knee injury. I shattered my meniscus and I had surgery. It was a big thing for me because it messed up with who I am. It's not just the injury. It was like I can't be the same Waldemar that I used to be. That defined me. So it didn't. The surgery didn't go well. After a year, I had a second surgery. So all in all, I had 2 years of barely moving, crutches, walking, no running, and it was super hard. I remember my body was totally unbalanced. Like my thigh on my left knee was as thick as my arm, really. And then so everything started going unbalanced. Then the pandemic hit, and as you know, everybody, went
No
within
travel. Yeah.
ourselves. Something happened to everyone, I think. And I started questioning, what I was doing right and wrong. And I said, what I'm doing is I'm trying to recover myself from the outside in instead of looking from the inside out. So really transforming my inner self so I can heal. So I started, studying how to eat better, how to sleep better, how to meditate, how to train martial arts. I had done some martial arts when I was younger, and I kind of got back into it from a different angle. When I was younger, it was more about fighting. Now it was more about getting inside you in a physical way. And with everything that I had learned from my life of training and exploring and paddling and climbing, I put all that knowledge together with my new knowledge and started developing these movement rituals or sessions for myself that involved mobility and breath work and some martial arts movements, some functional training, some endurance training, and it just everything started to make sense. Everything started to make sense. My body started transforming. I started losing extra weight, which I think it was more like accumulation of stress, than extra weight. And I got a lot of energy. And I started sharing these movements, these sessions with friends who said, "Hey, man, what are you doing? You look good." And I shared what I was doing, and eventually a friend of mine said, "You should write this and share it because it's something that people can benefit from."
Yeah.
So that's how the book started.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, it takes back to what we were saying, right? Those most challenging moments, right? The challenges before were climbing the mountains or doing the thing, but then this challenge was doing the internal work. And it helped you craft and become what you now are, which also is not just for you and your energy and what you're experienced personally, but also as an educator and sharing it and giving it to others. So you touch a little bit on it, on the mobility and the strength and other things, but what over the course of a day or week does that look like?
Well, I think the first thing that I promote is that you change your mindset. Because if you, at least what happens to me is I think willpower gets exhausted after a while. Nobody can live on willpower when you're sick, when you had a discussion with your spouse, when whatever, you had a failure in your business. We lack that sometimes. And I think it's impossible to say, I have enough willpower to get up every single day and do my routine on Tuesday, pull ups and intervals and whatever. I think you can achieve that for a period of time. But to think about longevity, to think about, can I sustain this forever, for as long as I can live? I feel that's hard. So what I did is that I started changing my vocabulary, and I said, instead of thinking about I need to do my workout routine every morning, because routine for me is repetitive, every day it's the same, it's something that I need to do, and if I don't do it, then it's a failure, right? And I changed it for ritual. So I said, instead of doing my routine every day, I'm going to do a ritual. And for me, a ritual is nourishing, it's beneficial, it gives me joy, it makes me grow. So every day I get up early, I set my clock, my alarm 30 minutes before everyone in my house, in my home, and I just do my ritual, which involves first foam rolling, and then first I actually drink what I call my morning potion, which is hot water with apple vinegar and some curcumin and pepper, and then I foam roll, and then I do some stretches with a purpose, like torsional stretches, and then I start moving my body in functional movements. And then I decide if I want to go towards, aerobic workout or functional strength or balance or mobility. And I have kind of placed my different sessions within those 4 parameters. And it depends on, first of all, it depends on how I'm feeling. Another concept that I decided to embrace is listen to your body. So what happens, I think, is that sometimes we try to push too hard when the body's saying, let me rest, right? I read this book that said, nothing good comes out of going out for a hard run when you have a sore throat. what happens is you'll get a cold.
Okay.
And then instead of losing one workout, you'll lose 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
So when your body is saying, let me rest, something's wrong, I try to let it rest. That doesn't mean I get up in the morning and do my ritual. I do, but I don't push it hard. On the other side, when I feel energy, sometimes you feel like you're super strong. I go hard, I go super hard. And that way, I've kind of managed to keep my body and my mind wanting to keep moving forever. I don't have a goal or an end date.
Yeah. Because it's about the process, not some end result. It's the ritualistic process of I'm investing in me and my health and my energy and my life. Do you use any outside data? Do you have a wearable device of any kind to kind of track your readiness or your heart rate variability or anything to decide how hard to push or not?
That's a good question. And I've debated it with myself quite a bit. I do use, for example, a heart rate monitor for when I'm biking or doing endurance, because I believe in zone 2 training and blah blah blah, all that. I've been hesitant in using the Aura Ring or the Whoop or whatever, because what I feel is that sometimes the benefit is surpassed by the anxiety looking at your device creates. I didn't achieve what I was supposed to, or I didn't sleep well. My device is saying I need 2 hours more of rest, or I ate a chocolate. I enjoyed it, but my sugar level went off the roof. And then what's the purpose of enjoying the chocolate, right? So I think that I don't use it currently.
Yeah.
And that's the reason. I think that if you do regular checkups and blood work and everything, I believe in listening to my body to understand what I'm doing correctly and what I'm not, instead of looking at a monitor that creates stress. But that's super personal.
Yeah, it is. I mean, they're the people that have the sleep anxiety. They sleep worse once they have the trackers. And there are other people that can kind of disassociate themselves from it. And it's just data. It's just informing. Like you referenced a continuous glucose monitor. Like, hey, I know this chocolate's going to do this, but I'm still making the decision to do it. But I want the information of, whoa, I didn't realize strawberries spike me, but blueberries don't. So if I'm not making that conscious decision, I want to do something healthy, I'm going to make sure I eat blueberries, not strawberries or something like that, because it is so personal. It makes sense. This is a theme that comes up a lot on the show, is this idea of listening to your body. And I don't know if I'm the weird one here, the kind of outlier, but I was this distance swimmer, would swim 25-kilometer races and everything. And so kind of train myself to not listen to a lot of those pain signals from the body, because you just need to push through. That's how you would train so hard. And that may have served me at a time in my life, but now not listening, I'm like, oh no, right? Whether you call it ritual or routine, like here's what I'm doing today. Here's the plan. And no matter how I feel, I'm doing that plan and then end up injured, right? or sick, because I'm not good at listening. So that's a muscle or skill that I've been trying to develop and hone. Is that something you already had naturally, or was it through this process you said, hey, I want to listen better and more, and so I'm going to start trying to pick up on those signals?
Oh, I didn't listen to anything when I was younger. I didn't listen to my body, to my parents, or I think it's definitely a skill that I've acquired with just experience and growing older, and understanding what makes my body feel good in my soul, and what doesn't. But it wasn't about that when I was, I did a lot of training, not so much for competitions, because the realm where I was in is not about competing. It was more about climbing or paddling a hard river. it was more competing with yourself. But I didn't listen. I pushed through just as you described. I pushed through even though I knew I was going to hurt my shoulder or whatever. Um, I think it's something that you have to you have to understand eventually, but it comes when it comes. I think it's important to. There's so many. I feel that there's so many recipes out there to be better, and I mean, of course, you hear one every single week, right? And I think it's important to be conscious of what's out there. Listen, understand it, be conscious. But I think it sinks in when it sinks in. You can't make it happen because then it's I think it's hard to embrace it. Of course you have to work at it, but eventually the body or the mind tells you, I need something, I need change, and that's when things sink in. Does that make sense?
It does. And I was going to ask about that with your morning ritual, right? You say you get up 30 minutes early versus everyone else in the house. Is it a 30-minute ritual? Like what does that ritual look like? And is it consistent day to day for the first part, and then it's just that last part you decide, am I going strength versus cardio versus?
It's consistent every day, and it's about 30 minutes, 30 to 40, sometimes less. But I've developed it into such a habit that it's part of who I am. I can't. I think I've missed my morning ritual in the last 5 years, probably 20 days. Even if I have an early flight, I get up. Even if I'm in a super small hotel room, I manage to get it in. I've done my ritual in a sidewalk because it just makes me feel good, and it's something that makes my day look better, and I know that.
And with the book and with what you're teaching others, is it about this one ritual, or is it about developing, crafting, honing in your own ritual? You say, hey, this is what makes my body, my mind, my energy feel good. And what I'm willing to stick with, right? Like not everybody may be willing to get up 30 minutes early or do the 40 minutes, but would a 10-minute, right? Like is the 10 minutes so much better than zero that if they find a 10-minute ritual, it's still worth kind of them figuring out what their own is?
I think you nailed it. I don't believe in recipes, right? In this is a right fit for everyone. I think it's more of a mindset. If I can share what worked for me regarding tearing down my objections of getting up and moving and doing something, I think that's the biggest step forward. If you tear down whatever your objections are to start moving and working towards better health, you are so far ahead of anybody who's getting up, working super hard, then getting injured, then not doing anything, then feeling bad, then doing it again. I don't think it's better than nothing, but I think that's not a sustainable path.
And I mean, is this something kind of targeted to a specific age, a specific mindset or person, or is it, hey, look, at any age, finding your ritual and maybe revisiting, because what felt right last year, 5 years ago, may be different than what's right today. And so revisit what you, your body, your mind need.
I wrote it thinking about people that are within my age range, because I was surrounded by friends who were having a hard time, and past 50, where this question in your head starts, pondering there and saying, should you keep pushing it, or are you at the age where you shouldn't feel that you're you're an adult now and you should enjoy other things and going out to nice dinners and playing golf and just chilling? Or should I keep, trying to push and keep getting stronger and agile? And so I think it's a big question that happens around 45, 50, 55. So I wrote it for them. But in the process, I've seen people that younger people that are, that embrace it and make sense. Others don't. Others say, I'm not there yet,
Yeah. I mean, it's like so much wisdom. It has to come to us at the right time. And so depending where you mentally are in your life, and I think you nailed it, that kind of 45, 55 is a very natural of, ooh, okay, doing these things doesn't feel the same. When I get out of bed, it doesn't feel like it did when I was 25. I may need to revisit it. But there are others that may be more self-aware saying, hey, I want to stay ahead of it. Like I even at 25 feel better when I put this ritual in place, when I do these things. And so I want to thank you, Waldemar, for writing this book and for the adventure that you have lived thus far and continue to live and inspire others to live as well. Where can people get a copy of Find Your Wild Flow?
Thank you. I'm super happy with where it's taken me in life. That's it wasn't a business decision at all. It was something that I wanted to share and I want to share. And it's taken me to new paths, new adventures. Well, you can find the book in Amazon. And then we have a web page in which you can also buy the book directly. It's wildflowmethod.com. And the Instagram page is also wildflow, the low dash, yeah. I guess it's called, .com.
Yeah.
Wildflow low dash method. Yeah, and I have a Instagram page as well, and it's more personal, but I post, what I've achieved, and it's Waldemar Franco.
Waldemar, yeah, it certainly has been an adventure, and I appreciate you allowing us on the Home of Healthspan to be part of that today. So thank you for your time and all your work.
Thank you. I really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks very much.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Home of Healthspan podcast. And remember, you can always find the products, practices, and routines mentioned by today's guests, as well as many other Healthspan role models on alively.com. Enjoy a lively day.